All right, I think we're live. So, welcome to another episode of Cool Story Bro. And I got with me today Lynn, Rupert, and Ollie. It's going to be a good show today. I think today I want to talk about mushroom intelligence. And I guess there's a lot of ways and threads we can go. We could go down Rupert's mushroom risotto hole, but I think we'll keep it more to the experiential side of it. I'm actually about an hour into my trip, which is the first time I guess we're doing an episode where I've taken some magic. So there's one way to do experience or I guess interact with the mushroom world, and I think it's the whole like side of intelligence that no one talks about, and it's so interesting when you get into the history of like mushrooms and fungi and what is it, where they come from, what kind of intelligence is going on there, how do we interact with it, how does it affect us, and then I guess we have some common threads, like both in evolution. We kind of actually come from fungus. If you look back far enough, it's more of an animal than a plant. So there's tons and tons of species now, just like I guess human races have all evolved all over the world, and we have black, brown, white variations. You have the same thing with mushrooms going on. You have some that are more magical or have different qualities, but it's something that I think has been studied for thousands of years actually, and so it's super interesting to see like where those threads have gone, like the people that have gone before and kind of experimented with different types. Like in traditional Chinese medicine, you have all the medicinal mushrooms that everyone knows about, like reishi, cordyceps, and all these things that have like very strong effects on the body and the immunity, especially. So the medicinal context, when you take these plants, they can actually interact with your biology and they can affect your physiology like very strongly, in a good way, for the most part. And obviously you have like other types of fungus that are not mushrooms specifically, like things like molds and spores and all kinds of stuff. So there is poisonous versions and variations of it too, which is interesting, and I haven't delved into that so much myself. But you have the psychedelic kind, I guess people would say, or like the type that affects your consciousness. So it almost like something's hijacking your nervous system a little bit and kind of playing games in there, and you're trying to understand how that's working, what is kind of taking over a little bit, or it's actually similar to lion's mane, I would say, in a way that you're taking something to kind of almost amplify your consciousness or your intelligence. And so lion's mane is a bit more subtle, that you don't feel an effect right away when you take it, but if you take enough of it for long enough, you'll definitely notice like a cognitive boost. There'll be like parts of your brain that just seem to work better, your memory's stronger, everything works faster, like just in terms of recall and stuff like that. So for like brain function and nerve function, lion's mane is amazing, and takes a bit longer to kick in. But something like psilocybin, with magic mushrooms, that comes on maybe an hour after you take it, and it's a much more acute trip. You're connecting to an intelligence that it's very strong. It's very obvious. You feel it like straight away, and people kind of do it recreationally, I guess, just to mess around with their consciousness and like experience different ways of being, just like we have alcohol or whatever, just like a drug, right? But there's an intelligence there. If you are sensitive enough to it, you can kind of interact with it. And Terence McKenna obviously is one I think is best well known to play around with this and go deeper into this. And he claimed he could talk with spirits and plants once he's connected to them in that sort of way. So that's really interesting. I haven't tried that yet, but I have noticed just how it affects the psyche, and like obviously your outward senses, like your vision, start to change, but also mentally, internally, it feels like something's creeping up behind you as the trip comes on. It's like a snake or a spider that's creeping up your back, and you can kind of feel it coming into your brain, and it's like that sort of anxiousness is the uncertainty, I guess, or the it's like an energy that's different, and you can kind of cause nausea and vomiting for some people too. It's quite strong when that energy kind of almost, it's like attaching or joining to yours, almost your energy. And it's super interesting, that experience. We can talk about that too, I guess. I don't know if you guys have played around with it much, but it opens up your perception in a lot of ways. We did a show a few episodes ago on like meditation and the difference between meditation and contemplation. So for me, contemplation is just, I enjoy it so much more, and something like mushrooms seems to amplify that a lot when you're under this sort of influence of these type of ones. it's obviously very introspective. That's what they call philosopher's stones, and you will tend to just think a lot about everything, right? About life, about whatever. Go very deeply into that, and so it's a great way to kind of add to your practice or your contemplation if you enjoy that, thinking about life, and yeah, like what is this energy? Where does it come from? How is it affecting my intelligence? And what can you use it for? You know, like how is it useful, and what can you learn from it? And it's almost like there's a lot of intelligence there, so you can ask it questions like kind of like sun gazing and stuff. You know, there's a lot of information there. We just don't know how to access it because it's not something we're given a manual to. Like it's a non-verbal intelligence. You can't have a conversation with like with you guys. But yeah, go on, Lynn. You had a question.
Yeah, just wondering. So you often hear, I've heard you say it as well, you know, when you're on magic, you get certain insights and so on. Have you yourself been able to actually carry through any insights you've experienced and like apply them in whilst on the journey, should we say?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, it makes me, like I said, amplifies things a bit. So it makes me even more appreciative of like life and nature and patterns when you look around and you see the geometry and like the order, and you actually see, you know, those geometric patterns when you're on magic. Even when you're like you're sun gazing, like right now I'm looking at the sun right now, and you can almost see different qualities because you can't normally look at the sun. So for me, so easily when you're on mushrooms, actually you can kind of look deeper into it. And so it's just that whole visual interaction of the universe that looks more beautiful, and you see how the universe is in a way. It's almost like appreciating nature. So that's the very sort of simple, I guess, way of interacting with it. And it's very beautiful and it's very deep as well, right? You can sun gaze for hours and go in some interesting places. But in terms of like insights into like specifically into my life, I think, yeah, it has opened up some awareness into like maybe blind areas or blind spots that it's like almost like people call the shadow self, or stuff that you maybe kind of ignore or suppress a little bit about yourself. So it's like you don't normally
give us an example, Mike.
Yeah, it's pretty personal, so I'm happy to talk about it. But yeah, no, it's a good, because I'm on magic now as well, so it's really interesting.
Give us a layer 1 example. We don't need layer 10.
Layer 10. I don't know, because it goes pretty deep. Even to the question of like, let's say sexuality and monogamy as an example. So like, you know, I think that for guys, we talk about sexual energy a lot, and we don't really understand it very well because we're not taught it very well. We don't have very good initiation around that energy or good role models of that energy. And so it can kind of get diffused into all kinds of, you know, ways, right? Like you're chasing women or pornography, or like, you know, it's just like that energy is so strong. We don't know how to channel it. And for myself, it's been a question, I guess, like an area of life that I haven't really gone deep into trying to master it or understand it, like at just a very superficial level, read some books or whatever, right? Not really deep, but it will show you these parts of yourself that have a lot of power. And that's what I'm saying, is like it almost tapping into your nervous system and showing you things about yourself and showing you areas where it's like, yeah, you need to put some attention and focus into that. You need to figure that out. And it makes it very, very obvious, right? It's like, that's an area you need to work on. So it's, yeah, we can go down that hole as well if you like, but it's interesting how it makes it brings it straight up to your face, and it shows it to you. It's like, yep, okay, I see it now. There's no way you can, that's what I'm saying about the shadow stuff. You can't really pretend it's not there, or I don't want to look at it, or whatever it is, right? It's going to show it to you. And I think that's why magic probably scares a lot of people, because there's probably a lot of suppressed things that we don't really want to face about ourselves, first of all. And then, yeah, it's like the feeling of losing control is another one. It's like something is so powerful, it can kind of like hijack you for a little bit and take you somewhere, and you're not fully in control, or you know, it's just shifting your normal consciousness, your seat of consciousness, where you're very aware of what's going on. It's like being drunk, right? It's like being knocked off your seat a little bit, and it's like, I guess people are used to that experience of being drunk, so they're more comfortable with it. But when you're knocked off your seat and it's like something else is there, it's like, wait, what's that? And what's behind it? Like, I think there is an energy and intelligence that is there, and you can talk to it, and it's quite interesting when you think of it from that perspective. So like I said, to have conversations with it even internally. And so yeah, I don't know, Rupert, if that answers your question, but we're going to go on some interesting tangents today.
It's a good start, mate.
I've got another question for you, Mike, actually.
Sure.
So talking about it, like you were saying, when people, because again, that's the most common thing you hear about people saying, "I had a scary trip." Like I won't name the person, but they said they took it and they were in a garage, and it happened like a car garage, and it happened like someone's house. It happened to be lots of say graffiti on the wall, and that she was just paralyzed on the floor for about 4 hours, couldn't move. Just that was what she said happened. Just looking at the wall, and everything was happening. It was freaked her out so much she didn't do it again. Now I'm wondering, and obviously I've never experienced it, but as you have yourself, are you able to take through? No, say it this way. Say, because there's no book on it, there's no guidebook, right? And I'm sure every experience is different for everyone. Do you think it's plausible / possible to help make that first experience a lot less scary and to help people get on this journey to provide some sort of, not necessarily maybe meditation, but maybe like an instruction guide, like 8 bullet points of things to do?
How to get high.
so that once you're actually in it, you have something to kind of reach back to. Again, whether that's possible or not, I have no idea. Unfortunately, I've never had the chance to go through it yet. But just wondering, do you think that's even possible for someone who's brand new to it to have some sort of framework to go by when they're in the journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that people struggle to even put these experiences into words, so it's hard to sort of structure it like that. It's like the whole dialogue or the way we have of making meaning with language and words, it kind of breaks down when you go into these worlds, right? And it's like just the experience is so new that it's like you're an explorer off the edge of the map. It's like you're saying, where's the map, basically is what you're saying. And just imagine before there were maps of the world and people were leaving their country and they're going out to the ocean and there's no map. That's pretty much what you're doing. It's just like, okay, there's no map here. So do I really want to be on this ship? That's the first question. Because most people are quite happy to stay on land and just stay in their whatever their normal consciousness. They don't want to journey too far, I guess, out to the unknown. But I think there are some sort of maybe things you can do to make it more pleasant or just less chance of a bad trip. Like again, like what people say is a bad trip, I think, is just almost it's amplifying your own energy. So if you're mentally or like psychically not stable, I would say that messing with these things or experimenting with these things could be just too strong, the energy, because you don't know yourself well enough, and so you're not going to be able to tell the difference of something else coming in that field of energy and how it's going to influence you. So I would say just stay away from it if you're just going to take it recreationally and just thinking of it as like a weekend thing to do, like alcohol or something, as my first thing. And I did this too, right? When I was young, I messed around a lot with this stuff like recreation, just having no guidance, no whatever, and had some good trips, bad trips, everything else, just like everyone else. But I think without approaching it like that, and back then I was very stupid as well, like mixing with other drugs like alcohol and other drugs. So if you just approach it as like almost like a guide or like a teacher, and you want to talk to it directly, then just take that particular whatever it is you want to take, and then go on that journey, and don't mess around with other things. But I think nature really helps, specifically when you're in that space. Like to be in a natural environment is more puts your physiology at ease, so you're not going to get anxious or weirded out by your own mind, more or less. That's kind of what happens to some people, I think, when they get into a bad trip. It's more like the neurosis of it, and when you're indoors, and I say when there's like a lot of noise, or a city is not great. I think you need to be out in nature and quiet as possible, and to really have that stillness as a sort of baseline for then exploring this type of stuff. And it's difficult to do for a lot of people because you don't have that environment around, and whatever, drugs are illegal or whatever. So you got to almost make the effort to really plan the trip carefully, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Mike, what do you think of this as kind of like as regards to that question? I actually know someone who is trying to organise a retreat for people to go to Jamaica because it's legal, and they basically organise a retreat and they get a bunch of people who've never taken it before, and then they sort of facilitate it. And then there's a second question I want to ask about that, I think it's kind of a little bit in the spirit of these ayahuasca retreats and kind of like guides and shamans and stuff, and like whether you think that's good or whether you think it's genuinely just better to sort of be alone or something like that.
It's a really good question. I don't know about your Jamaica bus idea, but it sounds fun. Jamaica bus adventure. That's why I just made it in imagination. Yeah, I think that it's becoming legal in a lot of areas now. Denver just legalized it, so it's probably pretty easy to get it in the States. And then in Europe, there's websites you can get them shipped to most of Europe, and Portugal, where I am, it's pretty much legal, as good as legal for you to explore it. So I don't know about the idea of like doing it in groups and with maybe a guide. Like I said, it probably is useful in a way if you're not used to exploring your consciousness, or you're just not very sure about yourself. Maybe like you want someone who's been there before. You know, it's just take that analogy of like you're going on that ship and there's no map, but there's some crazy sailor who's done this 100 times and he's been out to seas. So it's like you want to be with that guy, or you want to face the storms to figure it out for yourself. I think that it's not that dangerous in that sense. That there's not that many storms you're going to have to face alone, other than your own self, your own psyche, right? So you're going to do that with or without a guide. That's pretty much, the guide is just there to it's just sort of like a mental anchor for you to feel safe, right? So you can go explore yourself. He's not going to get in the way. He's just going to let you do your thing and explore yourself. But for some people, it's nice to have that feeling of someone around, like someone is safe, who knows what they're doing. So I honestly haven't done much of that at all. So that's just how I imagine it to be. I think that doing it alone for me is easier because I am free will. I can just do it whenever I want to do it. I don't have to plan or go to a trip or book something. But also there's no energy around to kind of interpret or try and distinguish what's mine, what's someone else's. When you take these things, like the energy field is quite powerful, and you can sense a lot of things. Like you become borderline, I would say, psychic, like towards other people's intentions and empathy and emotions. These things become very acute and strong. And so if you're not sure what's going on, I think it's better to do it alone. And that way, at least for the beginning, until you're very comfortable with the experience, you've done it maybe like a lot of times, and then you can go and try it with other people as well. But yeah, I think it's useful for some people. But for those people, I question whether they should even be doing it. That's my question. So I wouldn't say don't do it. Like I wouldn't stop people from doing it. And if having a guide makes more sense to them, then I would say, yeah, just use your intuition. Try and find someone, because like there is a lot of people, look for these experiences and try and seek out someone. But there's a lot of people preying on that too, right? There's a lot of people preying on people that are, I guess, naive in that sense. It's that naive energy that they can tap into. And they can kind of just abuse that and just manipulate that, or just charge a lot of money and then, just fuck around. Like, I think there are a few legitimate shamans and guides that can take you to places and help you and show you things, but it's few and far between. So what are your chances of finding those? There are some people I know that can recommend probably. And so you go for that kind of referral basis to find the good ones. But I haven't done too much of the other plants. This is specifically mushrooms I'm talking about, that I find much better alone, and just working up from a small dose so you're not freaking yourself out, and you can understand the experience, how it's coming onto your psyche. And then once you're very comfortable with doing it a few times, you can up the dose and just see what happens, like where it takes you and how far you want to stretch the limits, I guess. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think the idea of what you said about baseline is quite interesting. I think with anything to do with energy, having a baseline is pretty important, figuring out what's you and what's someone else or something. And it also makes me wonder about the idea of when you read about people taking psychedelics, sometimes they're talking about the psychedelic opening something up. So they're experiencing themselves or experiencing, reality.
The portal.
Yeah, but what you're describing is more about experiencing the intelligence of the mushrooms themselves, which kind of makes more sense from the perspective of not having a guide, I suppose, or not. I don't know, but just curious about your thoughts about that. Really, like the difference between the idea of experiencing the mushroom itself, or whether it's you're experiencing yourself. Or maybe that's the wrong question.
No,
that's how I've always thought of it.
Question. Yeah, it's the perfect question. It goes back to the root of consciousness. Like, what is separate? What is ourselves, right? Because you're experiencing the mushroom, but you're also experiencing yourself. And the two things are connected. They're not separate things. So even like mushroom intelligence, it's just a part of you, right? Like if you look at the DNA lines, they go back we go back to the same ancestry. And that's why when people take mushrooms, they say they're contacting their ancestors. Like that's the interpretation that a lot of shamans will give you, as to why you take these things. And yeah, it's like a practice that's going on for thousands of years. People go take these plants, contact the ancestors, try and pull down some wisdom, and experience themselves, remember themselves again through their ancestry, and like through this experience of like, what is this intelligence? Where is it coming from? What can it teach me? What can it show me? So it is very much, I guess, hard to put into words for sure, but like very much like encountering an intelligence. And so there's that way of looking at it, but it's also what that intelligence can show you about yourself, and therefore what that gives you, right? Because it's that insight or that awareness about yourself that is actually the powerful part of taking what you take away from the trip.
Yeah, I've got to jump in as well. Now, one deep dark theme, Trekkie. I love me a bit of Star Trek, and what I tend to like about sci-fi is those who tend to write or be involved in the production of it. I don't know how or why, but it's not all the time. But it tends to be things that they're pretty on point about. Whether you're talking about mobile phone devices, and the way they communicated. But even with regard to mushrooms, there's the first time I heard of a mycelial network was from a Star Trek episode, and
Totally.
they're talking about. I think actually they read it again in the most recent series that come out. And basically, one guy they use the word like infested, with spores, but it enables him to see the map of the mycelial network that spreads across all known universe and to like different dimensions. And that kind of hearing you talk about it is reminding me of those episodes. So whether someone who's helped to write it has had the experience and been on it themselves or done actual research, it's just interesting seeing how that was brought up and visualized in Star Trek, like the way they did it, because they have the tech now to some extent to probably put into image what they may have experienced. I'll forward the link to you guys just so you can see what it looks like. I'd love to see if there's anything remotely similar to what you experienced, maybe when you said you've seen through and towards things. That'd be interesting to see. But I just thought I'd bring that point up because it's an interesting one to see, and how they use this to then, like you were saying, learn all of humankind's intelligence. That's what the episode was about. They knew, like, instantaneously they had access to everything and understanding, and this particular character then felt extremely content after having, sometimes they show taking in massive information as like a way of destroying the mind. If it's too much as an overload, but in this case it was seen as like, but it's all part of the same, and it was interesting. Yeah, I thought I'd bring that up. I'll definitely shoot that link over at some point. It's I think it's on Netflix or something like that. But good episode.
That's super interesting. I think I heard about this too, actually, that Stamets, or one of these guys, was involved with Star Trek. So he was like directing some of the plots or something, or behind this. Obviously, he has a lot of knowledge around the origin.
The name of the character. The name of the character is Stamets. Funnily enough. Okay.
Yeah, exactly right. So he's involved. That's the guy on Joe Rogan. You can check him out. He talks about this stuff a little bit. But I think a lot of this magic is woven into stories, whether that be Hollywood, Star Trek, like sci-fi, where we get this inspiration ideas from. A lot of it comes back to the people taking these substances and asking these questions. And I think specifically around mushrooms, it's interesting because, like what you mentioned about the mycelial network, and like it's like a network of intelligence. So it's almost like they send their spies, they drop their spores across all the universe, until they find some intelligent life, and then they sort of drop down, and then it's like sitting there for billions of years waiting for someone to eat it. And it's like they're playing the long game, and then someone eats it, and then it kind of integrates. But you look at how mushrooms integrate with plant intelligence, not just humans, right? But like underground, like you said, the mycelial networks, they connect trees. They're like an integral part of life. So whether they seed life or they're necessary for life, they're sort of somewhere in between that stage. It's interesting. It's like they're so intelligent, and it's like a creator type of energy. That's my sense of it. Is like, if they're not the creator of life, then they're very closely connected to whoever is creating life. And it's architect and engineer in such a way that these things are pretty essential for life, right? So these networks that they develop underground, these mycelial networks, and I'm sure the same thing is going on between space and time, like all the, the lines of these mushrooms, where they come from and how they're connected, even indirectly, like I said, through space and time. yeah, you do tap into this, and it's sort of these threads, and you wonder like, what am I holding here? What is this a piece of? Like, where does it go back to? You know, like what is there? It's very interesting, like how I guess energy, because all comes back to energy and information. Like consciousness is just that. It's just organized energy and information. That's it. And so when you take something that can amplify your own intelligence and energy, you're like, wow, this must be even more intelligent than me. What is it? Where is it coming from? And that whole curiosity aspect of it. And I think that's what Star Trek goes back to. A lot of it is trying to just understand life and where it's coming from. And yeah, I love sci-fi, you know, for those questions. So I don't know if I answered your question at all. Where were we on?
You know, it was less so a question, more it's like a little fun fact, you know.
Oh yeah.
At a house party or something, you know. Yeah, it's interesting how it triggered that memory. I was like, oh yeah, and then you know where it goes from there. But seeing how someone's put it into a way for someone who's maybe has never experienced it to be able to experience it. But I guess it's now I'm thinking about it, it's a funny way of someone's has managed to get a drug trip into one of the most watched shows on the planet. And like the experience of it, and they've showed it in a beautiful way, sort of thing, just without visually showing someone ingesting something. It was like
yeah, it's pretty cool, I guess, how you can expose people to these ideas without themselves having to take the plant and go through it or see it for themselves that way.
It's purely
no, it's just pulling ideas into reality, right? It's just like I said, it's another layer or sort of information network you can tap into. You can pull information from it back into this world, you know, just like sun gazing. And so people are doing that all the time when they're telling stories, and you know, it doesn't mean you have to take the plant yourself, but there's a very deep, I guess, connection, obviously, with taking it yourself and remembering yourself, what that feels like, something coming into your field. And it doesn't feel like foreign or dangerous. I don't feel threatened at all. I don't feel threatened by it. So, but you do notice it. It's like, okay, this thing's been around for a while. It's literally, it's like, trying to find the best way to explain this. It's like, it's almost as if like, yeah, it's just the gardener's checking in, right? That's the best way I can think of it. It's like, we're all in the garden, you know, someone has seeded a bunch of life on this planet, and then the gardener checks in once in a while and says, oh, what's going on? What's growing? What's doing good? And you know, that's this sort of layer of information or energy that sits above, I guess, normal day-to-day reality. So this is a really interesting thing, is like when you get into what is consciousness, where does it come from? What seeded life? What creates life? Like, these are all the questions that I'm curious about, right? And what can you not normally see, but is maybe there, you're just not aware of it. Like even just the stuff underground in my cell network, these guys, you know, busy doing their things for billions of years. We can't see any of it because it's all going on underground. It's the same thing in like metaphysical space, is that all these stories have been told of people taking these plants, going into these worlds, experiencing these things, people going off, you know, the edge of the map, and just like, where are they going and what are they seeing, and like what, yeah, like where are they exactly when they take those things, where are they going, what dimensions are there, and how does that tap into, or how does that relate to the world we live in, like the day-to-day, you know, three-dimensional solid existence that we consider to be real, and we discount things that aren't fitting into that. It's like, oh, it's not real, but it's maybe even more real, because maybe there's the dimensions that 3D space-time is coming from, right? It's like an organizational layer of information. It's kind of how I'm thinking about it, is that stuff's all happening in the idea, imagination, spirit world first, and then slowly that gets condensed down into like matter, right? And then 3D, whatever, life. So actually, it's more interesting because you're going closer to the source when you take these things, and like how information is being organized and architected down on this like solid world.
Funny enough, mainstream scientists in their own way are backing up exactly what you're saying. You know, I mean, the well-known ones like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Michio Kaku, stuff like that. They like the ones that are like the celebrity scientists, for example, who actually seem to know what they're talking about. They so that they'll often go and talk about how we can only really we live in 3D environment, but we see in a 2D space. We see in 2D. Even though we live in because we can't. If we could see in 3 dimension, it'd be a lot different to how it looks. Yet we live in it, and so that's kind of what you're saying. We make that we're living in a higher dimension for whatever different type of dimension it is. Yet, so the things that are causing our actions, we may not think that. We may think something else is doing it. It could actually be that we think we're doing it, but it could actually be something else that's leading it. Not to cause paranoia in anyone, but it's interesting you saying that. It kind of science would probably back that up in their own way. Not saying therefore it means that exists. It's just it's not impossible that exists. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the people that go there, right? Because science doesn't really have answers for a lot of this stuff, and so it kind of breaks down. But we've at least gone far enough with science that we can kind of show what a joke it is, and that's great, right? We can say, oh, there's this thing called quantum physics, and science can't really explain any of it with our current interpretation or laws. They all break down at a certain level of reality. So science can only go so far, and beyond that point, it's a joke, and that's it. That's all. You need to know about it for now, and you can experience things and take it for yourself and experience it and decide for yourself what is real, and not have to wait for some expert to define it for you in the law or something. But you can see for yourself, what do you sense? Are you making sense of reality all the time, right? You're interpreting what's real, what's not. We are like directed by energy all the time to try and identify. I think that's what we're doing all the time, identifying life and where we fit into it. Like, how are we a part of it, and where is it coming from? What's the source of it? And mushrooms have just been around for a long time, like a really, really long time. So if you want to understand life, you're best off going to the source of some of this stuff that's like super old and tapping into it. And the only way you can really tap into it in that sense is eating it, right? Because then it's integrating it into your physiology. You can't interrogate it like a prisoner or something. You can't ask it questions. You can take it into your body, and then obviously your body's going to digest it, and then how that assimilates, if you like, that life is assimilating into your energy field, and then you get to experience it from that sense, and then you can see what it feels like. So I think that's the best experience you'll have available to us, and we just don't know it's even possible because it's made illegal, or people just create stories about how dangerous it is or something. Like, it's bullshit, man. It's just fucking life. Just go take some and just find out for yourself what's going on. You don't need someone to tell you it's safe, or what the fuck are we living in a playground here? Just go be an adult and decide for yourself what answers you want to life. And so that's pretty much all I'm doing. But yeah, definitely when you take it in and you digest it and it becomes part of you, and it's like you're assimilating life, but a very intelligent life, because we're assimilating things all the time when we eat food. It's not like so intelligent it can't give you an enlightenment by eating a nut or something. But when you eat a mushroom, it's a bit different because you're eating something that is really old and really intelligent. So going back to Rupert's point about his mushroom risotto, maybe some relative mushrooms are not as intelligent as others. And I don't know what enlightenment you might get from that risotto, but if you take the right mushrooms...
I'm definitely going to have another one tonight after this podcast.
If you take the right mushrooms, maybe you'll have a different experience, and maybe more than more for your senses or for your taste. But yeah, I think mushrooms is such a huge family of intelligence. That's what I want to, kind of convey, is that you can pick even just for certain things like your immunity you want to boost, or this issue, like that's how we're kind of using it right now. It's like very targeted for very specific things, but it's kind of dumb because this thing is just so intelligent. It's like, why don't I just eat a mushroom and let it tell me what's going on, and then we'll figure out reality together, right? It's like a symbiotic kind of partnership. That's how consciousness evolves, I think, when you have things cooperating, right? And so if you have, let's say, human consciousness, and you eat a mushroom and you're then cooperating with this mushroom consciousness, then together you're more intelligent, right, than either of you separate. This thing sitting there on the ground, you sitting here without a clue who you actually are, sucking your thumb or something, I don't know, like trying to figure out where you came from. But together that consciousness is more intelligent, and it can organize itself in ways to do more interesting things, experience more, feel more, sense more, which is really what it's all about, right? So even like now, because I'm on it, I can see reality differently. And like looking at the sun again, you see the kind of geometric patterns and shapes around it in the skies and things you don't normally see. So as I'm saying, when we think the world is a certain way, it's because our senses are telling us that's what it is. And normally our senses are very limited, or mushroom intelligence hasn't opened it up to see things we don't normally see, right? So our senses can be like stretched in ways we don't even understand when we integrate other consciousness that's more intelligent into ourselves. And I think that's the beauty of life. That's what we're supposed to be doing, is like taking experiences with more intelligent life and then making meaning from that. And so that's what I'm doing with the sun, that's what I'm doing with the mushrooms. These things are just like billions of years old, and I'm just like, hello, what's going on? Show me something new. You know, that's all I'm doing, is being open to that experience of like learning about life. And yeah, it's just that curiosity is enough to get some pretty interesting answers, at least to like what feels good for your basic, I guess, wellness and happiness. And then like, yeah, like deeper questions like what's going on with, you know, where we come from, and like trying to sense energy around you, and trying to like identify the world, right? Because there's all these systems of energy going on all the time, and they're all like viruses. They're all competing for your energy and your attention and your time, right? So we're not very aware of these things because we're just not very aware of our own energy even, and what's taking from that. But taking mushrooms like this, it amplifies like your understanding, your awareness of your field, your energy, your time, your consciousness, and then you can choose how much of you want to give away to other systems and other people and whatever to cooperate. But you can see exactly for what it is. You can see competing like mind viruses for your attention, you know, digitally online, or, you know, governments, you know, in the real world, like, or people, that energy vampires, like you just can sense those things much more strongly, and therefore you are more powerful, because so much of the attention for your time and energy is below our ability to process it. And that's where it gets you, because you can't even defend against it, because you can't even see it. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that when you take these mushrooms, you can see it, and then everything else, the game's over. It's like, oh, that was just a game. It was just a game someone's playing with you because you couldn't see it. It's like taking advantage of a kid because they can't even fucking walk. That's literally what's going on in the world today. Is there a bunch of systems of energy, like hijacking people's energy, like toddlers from kids, like taking candy from a kid because you can. That's kind of what's going on right now. That's what I'm saying, is the mushrooms give you that awareness of like, okay, yeah, these are the games going on, and I can choose to participate or not. And what other intelligence is out there that I can cooperate with? Because I think this is a really crucial point. Is like, we have an intelligence field, right? The sum of all our experiences, all the things that we have like processed and learned about the world and decided is real for us. And so we have this like walking body of intelligence all the time, like our sort of, you know, individual consciousness, whatever you want to call it, this sort of thing you walk around in all day and decide what's real. And then you're deciding who to cooperate with and for what purpose. And I think there are some really powerful alliances and corporations you can make with nature, with sun, with plants, that will just amplify your power. It will just take you to another level. People can't even see what's going on those levels because they're just stuck in like someone else's game, like someone else's energy game, and they're not even open to these experiences because they've been told it's dangerous. Because that mind virus has chewed up this person and infected their brain with malware, and now they can't take something that frees them because their brain is like infected. You know, that's how it kind of feels. So yeah, if you want to free yourself, then you gotta like, I guess, take some pretty powerful medicine to kind of unhijack yourself and decide for yourself what's real. And fuck the experts. I'm just gonna, you know, obviously I'm gonna look around to see who else has done this stuff, like Terence McKenna. I probably listened to all of his stuff because I wanted to know what he knew, because I can condense learning and information from that perspective, from whatever 30, 40 years of his life and learning and whatever he wanted to share, and I can help that can help me on my journey. But it's definitely not like gospel truth, and I decide for myself how much of it I think is real. But it's interesting, you know, it's like a story. So he shared it, and I think it's quite interesting, some of his ideas, but I don't buy into a lot of it. So yeah, that's pretty much you're on your own when you go into this kind of journey, because there's no maps out there for like How do you find intelligent consciousness and then connect with it and then amplify your own intelligence? And then it's like a computer game. You're just constantly leveling up. What's the most intelligent thing around you can find, connect to, upload your brain into it, download whatever intelligence is there, and then, you know, carry on your merry way. And I think a lot of us are sorely lacking in inspirational sources of intelligence around us to connect to, and you're just getting feedback from whatever is in your environment. It's not that intelligent, to be honest. Like, if it's just more podcasts from more people in the same memory, you know, matrix world, and they've all been raised the same way, you're just hearing an echo. It's just like you're hearing echoes. You're not actually hearing intelligence. So this is the most interesting for me, is like finding the unique sources of intelligence. And often the things that people tell you is dangerous because it's competing for the mind virus that you're operating in. And then you're like, oh, I see what's going on. It's just a game. And then you can find those alliances and you can decide how much your attention to put into it. But if it's benefiting you, I mean, that's the best kind of relationship, right? Where you take something and it actually amplifies you. So I'm sure the mushrooms are learning something through being through me, or like connecting with me. They're getting something out of it, but it's not like a manipulative or like you know, like a subliminal hijacking, which is going on all the time with the other forces going on, you know, for energy. Yeah, it's completely mutual, and you can just choose to eat this mushroom or not. And if that's great, it's like free choice. It's like crypto. You can choose to use me or not. It's great. And but if there's enough intelligence there, then obviously it's going to have an interesting story, and so I'm going to want to know, yeah, what's going on. Sorry, I'm monologuing a bit here, guys. I don't have anything else. The questions, we're on a podcast, but
what about, so if you're in a world where all of these different things competing for your attention and mind viruses and things like this, and then being under the influence of mushrooms, what have you, allows you to see things not as echoes but as they are, and then allows you to sort of snap out of it. So like in terms of like practical things, aside from obviously just being on it all the time, like what could you do in terms of while you're on it, because you're saying it pulls you out of a state of mind where you are able to see outside of all that stuff, right? But then when it's over,
go back into the matrix,
over, right? Yes. So like, what about like formal? Do you do anything like that, like formal sort of self-programming things while you're in that state of mind to
like self-hypnosis or something?
Self-hypnosis or self-suggestion or anything.
Yeah, like you're definitely, I guess, more suggestible or more open in these states. You could probably program yourself with some interesting beliefs if you wanted to. I guess some people do that, right? Like want to instill some beliefs about themselves, tell them something. But again, it's like, I don't know, like that feels like a bit like childish or playground-like things to do. It's like, I need to install positive belief in my subconscious because I don't have it, like, or whatever it is, like to see through reality for what it is. Like, you're right, the mushroom wears off and then you're back on your own to a degree, you know, but obviously it's shown you things that you can't unsee, right? So then you are different, you are changed. And things like lion's mane, it is very cumulative and it's a longer process. So that learning is always happening. It's not just like acute, like magic mushrooms. But I think you can choose what to participate in, which games you want to participate in. This is what I'm saying, is like, there's all these games going on. Some of them have made them out to be real serious games. Like, you've got to pay attention to these games. These are the most important games. And your life depends on these games. You see, there's all that kind of energy going on. And then you can just look at it and just laugh. And it's like, that's bollocks. And then you can discard that. So you're not emotionally attached to like believing in this bullshit is, you know, being sold to you as the stuff that you need for your life. So your life, your intelligence, your energy, you get a much clearer sense for what's guiding that, where it's coming from. Actually, no one's giving you life except the sun. And, you know, you feed yourself with intelligence, like, you know, good food and good air, and these things are free, right? So it's like nothing gives you life around you. No system is giving you that. It doesn't, you don't owe it anything in response for your, you know, people say you owe government something for your education or for your this or for your that. It's all just stories. It's fuck that. Life, where life really comes from, when you really understand the fundamental, is obviously from your mum. She put you out into the world, and then nature is the perfect guardian, and that is the steward of life. And so if you connect with that on a daily basis, I really think that's all you need to do to get back to this sort of understanding of who you are, and then choosing which games to participate in, which ones are like mutually beneficial, like the mushroom game, or like competing for your time and energy and sucking you dry, like a Matrix kind of game, like, you know, the money game, the deck game, the whatever game, and just like Facebook game, you know, social media hijacking your attention. And you can just see it more clearly for what it is. You can still participate if it's fun. Yeah, sure. You know, I'll spend some time on Facebook. It feels good, but I'm not going to let that abuse me. And I think that the relationship becomes abusive many times when you're not aware of, like I said, it's below your ability to process it. So that's the cleverest thing when it comes to intelligence and how intelligence organizes and kind of feeds off other intelligence, right? So there's always a food chain. This is what people forget, is there's this chain. And if you pretend it's not there, well, something is feeding on you. So yeah, you better pay attention to that food chain and understand what's feeding on you. And do you want to participate and be fed off? Or do you want to shake it off and say, fuck that, I'm free? And then decide what energy to take in that's going to actually lift you up. And for me, that's the sun, and that's, you know, nature. And those fields are natural, and they're designed to enhance life. So they're going to be good for me, and I can spend time there, and it's going to build me up. And all the other games, they're designed to compete and take, and there's a scarcity built into them. So they're going to just keep taking because they don't have enough, and they just keep taking from you all your attention, all your energy, everything you got until you're dead. So I don't know if I'm going off in another monologue here, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I understood from that is kind of don't try to put it into, think of it in the terms of what you're trying to escape, and try to sort of create some sort of, because games and structures and just be holistic about it. Instead of, because I was thinking about kind of, you know, are you doing some stuff while you're, you know,
laying down
establishing some behavior? Yeah, establishing some behavior patterns or programs. Actually, what it seems like you're doing is you're just kind of doing some work,
removing some malware.
Work. Yeah, and you're just doing it, and then you're doing it regularly enough. It's just some part of your lifestyle. And then it becomes,
yeah, I think that's what it should be. I think that it should be integrated into your life, and not something that you go into once a year or one experience, then go back into the Matrix. Like, they didn't learn fucking anything, did you? So you gotta like integrate it into your life so it's regenerative and sustainable for yourself, for your consciousness, for your energy, and carry on with your life. Like, yeah, it's connected. So I take mushrooms every day. I just don't take the really powerful ones that knock me off my seat of consciousness. I do those every few weeks, you know, and I save those experiences. When I have a really good time, and I'll do those. But yeah, I think doing them in nature is obviously way better energy in terms of like integrating the knowledge and the wisdom they have to share, and just being open to that, and then being aware of what games are normally going on. So like, you go into the mushroom world, you go into that little game for a while, then you come out, maybe it wears off. Like, oh, that was nice, that was funny, that tickled me a little bit. And then what other games are you playing? Like, every day is a game. Every day is just another game, right? So it's like, there's so many systems that like I said, hijacked. It's like malware, hijack your brain to think these games are important. Play these games. Just imagine like that, like your computer is being affected with all this malware through school, through, you know, brainwashing, through just hearing it enough to believe this is what consciousness is about. And then that's what you run around busy acquiring more money for the money matrix. And it's just all a game. Like, is it feeding you, or are you feeding it? That is what you get a better sense of when you take these things. Because they're very honest teachers. They're like, you know, they'll show you what's going on. They'll enhance your own intelligence, and then you can snap out of whatever, you know, state of consciousness you were in before you took that mushroom. Whatever, you know, if you were asleep or if you didn't see things, like I said, because you couldn't defend yourself because you couldn't see things that were taken from you, but then now you can see it. So great, now I can day to day better choose how I want to live my life, and every day is regenerative for me. So like, every day I'm out here in the sun just topping up because this is what gives me life. Nothing else gives me life. All these other things are just belief systems that have been installed into my computer like malware, and they're just taking from my energy. And I just started removing all those things. It's like, fuck it. I don't want it in there anymore. It's not helping me. It's just a belief system that someone has installed some scarcity in there or whatever, to make me believe these things are real. And actually they're not real at all. And I think that's, day-to-day reality. That's what you can do after the experience is decide what's malware and what's real. Yeah. Cool. All right, it's fun sharing, being on the mushroom and seeing what comes to me. But yeah, it's a really interesting consciousness. Obviously, I still feel totally in control. I can get up and walk around, and I'm in control of my body and where I go and everything. But what I maybe see now that I don't normally see, because it's constant, that stream of consciousness, right, that you're constantly processing. Your brain is constantly taking in all the time what's going on around you, trying to keep you safe, trying to give you information that's going to help you, what to pay attention to, that's going to help you. And so mushroom, I guess, just helps you to tune and sort of refine the management of that, like how thoughts are coming to you, which ones are interesting and informational, which ones are just like some malware programming to get rid of, some scarcity is trying to drag you back into the matrix, and just organize your thoughts more coherently. I guess that's what it is helping you to do, and that's why it's a threat to systems that are hijacking you. And they obviously want to make that illegal because they want people to see what's going on. They don't want people to see the game. Yeah,
it's true. I mean, just thinking as well, Mike, actually, because you made reference to how earlier on, I meant to ask, but I forgot, you made reference to how it can help heighten. You say it takes you to almost be, or possibly version on to being psychic, and that your ability to pick up on other people's maybe thoughts, feelings, and whether someone thinks it is by a psychic ability or it's just your senses are heightened so much that you're picking up on little bit of clues, audio clues. So I'm out of curiosity, I mean, not that you've tried it, I'm sure, but obviously if someone were, was used to taking, been on magic like yourself and had the ability to partake in a combat sport of sorts, or like some sort of sport game, let's say combat, like a martial art, because it's a kind of like a one-on-one, you're picking up on things. Do you think it could be of positive benefit, or do you think it will slow you down physically?
Can it help you in a contact sport scenario, you mean?
Yeah, not that I'm looking to do that, but just out of curiosity.
Up your level up.
Yeah, because I know you mentioned that you'll still do, so you'll do yoga while doing it. Do you feel is the right word? Slower, inhibited, physically reduced compared to when you're not on the magic, when doing physical?
Like mentally, you go off into another universe, right? You're not even in your body, so I'm not sure I won't be fighting anyone right now. but there's different mushrooms for that, right? Like you can take things that increase your basic motor function, and lion's mane, I think for day-to-day consciousness, lion's mane is your best buddy, honestly. If you just want to perform better and just do better, everything's connected better, works better, lion's mane, 100%.
By the way, do you know Holland and Barrett sell that? Fun fact.
Do they?
Yeah, it caught me off guard. I was like, okay, fun fact. It's considered an illegal drug over here. Just a mushroom.
I don't think it's regulated at all. I think it's just a mushroom. Yeah. How do you regulate life, man? This is again stupid. Yes, side point, but yeah, I didn't know Holland Barrett is selling it. I think there's different types. So like you can get it from the Mycelial Network, which is like cultivated. That's like eating farmed mushroom a little bit. I don't know. You can get the wild ones. Probably the wild ones are better. And from the fruiting bodies, I think has different compounds. So this is lion's mane specifically we're talking about right now, nothing else.
That's right.
And I think the one I get from Time Health is like a mix of the fruiting bodies, and so it's like more natural. And it's I think the one Stamets sells maybe it's okay, but it's still going to help you in some way, like increase your intelligence, whatever. But maybe not as good as this one. Just my opinion.
Sure.
Holland and Barrett, man, they're not selling life; they're selling death half the time. So I don't know what to tell you with them, but different Matrix story.
So avoid that particular one. Once take on the journey for combat, check. But I'm sure probably on the other side of it will help sharpen your awareness as well.
Yeah, maybe it will just help you evaluate who your real opponents are in life. You know, thinking from that perspective. I mean, the reason why you're sharpening your toolbox, right? In times of peace, is like you're trying to refine it, so you have a sharper body and mind for when you need it, right? That's the whole point of kind of martial arts and self-defense and stuff. But these things will show you in a different way, refine your mind in a way. It's like, oh, you can refine your body all day long, but if your mind's infected, you're fucked. And that's the game everyone's playing. They go into the gym, they're getting healthy. Yeah, I'm getting healthy. But your mind's still infected because, you know, some malware got stuck in there from generations ago, and it's just carrying on through your parents. And, you know, so this is the kind of thing mushrooms can come in and help you kind of wheedle through. And you know, obviously, no one's going to do that for you. That work you got to do for yourself, right? You got to figure out, what's running in there, what belief systems are running in there, and are they helpful to me? But that's what I'm saying, is that people can't even process this stuff. Therefore, they can't defend against it. At least your enemy, physically, you can see them. You can start to prepare yourself, you know, like if you're going to face off against someone, you can see them, so you know what you're defending against. But these things, unseen, is the most dangerous enemy, because it's like you can't even see it. Imagine your enemy's got superpower and he goes invisible on your ass, and then you're fucked because you can't even see him. It's literally, that's what we're operating in this kind of world. Is like the enemy just went invisible. Oh shit. Now I'm gonna die. That's kind of the world that we're all facing, I think, is a lot of these enemies are now invisible, and so you got to level up your intelligence and your consciousness to kind of just see actually what's going on half the time. And so mushrooms do play a part in that, but just like things like I said, sun gazing and, you know, spending more time in nature, refine your senses. And the point you're making about being psychic and stuff, like, I don't really consider myself psychic any more than anyone else. I think all our senses are like able to do things we're not aware of, right? So we have ways of sharpening them, as I'm saying. Like, you're sharpening your body with martial arts, you can sharpen your mind with techniques, and they're so powerful. Like, they seem psychic to other people, whatever, you know, that they can be so sharp and so refined, like weapons, that level of like how concentrated they can be. And actually people are using ESP like in military for sure, like, you know, in that context. But we just don't know how powerful our senses are, so we just assume that's kind of the limit, because that's what we're born up. That's kind of dumb, because we know we can train our muscles, we can be stronger than they are by default. We know you can almost sharpen any sense if you pay enough attention to it. And so this is kind of what I consider myself to be doing actually when I take these mushrooms, is like I'm sharpening my senses, because I'm exposing them to intelligence they're not normally exposed to. And they're able to refine from that and learn from that and grow. And then they're more mature. It's just like almost like exposing yourself to a virus or something, and then you're more mature the next time something comes along, you know, you can handle it. But I don't feel the mushroom takes anything from you like a virus. So it's not a fair comparison in that sense.
Yeah, but I think because we're probably such a visual species, the more outwardly physical attributes, the eye that grow your muscles, you know, whereas with brain you don't see it grow. You know, you can see the results of it, but I think probably for a good chunk of our existence, obviously depending on what timeline you believe and what hasn't happened, it could be understandable the reason why it's maybe.
Why? What do you know that I don't know, Lynn? What timeline are you on? What's happened where you are?
No, I was sitting on a lot of these podcasts, you know. Hearing some cool theories come up, but yeah, it's just it could be a big chunk of the reason. I reckon it's for myself as well. Why it wasn't until I saw. I said they like, because, you know, if you can compare being told something and seeing something, we're always going to believe what we see. Compare hearing something and seeing something, you're more likely to believe what you see. You know, if it's indicating a certain action, that seems to be one sense that that's our gateway to the universe.
That's the most primitive way of learning, right? Is you see something to believe it, right? So you can mimic and you can learn. That's useful, like the babies learn that way, right? So literally that's how kind of, you know, we can learn through imitation, and that's how we believe things is possible. If we see something, then like, oh, I can do that too, right? So that kind of sensory perception and way of learning is valid. It's not like, I mean, to dumb it down, but it's pretty basic in the sense of like, that's only one way our intelligence can kind of grow, right? Through seeing it. Like, if you imagine you're a creator, then you are life, you are source. So you don't need to mimic anything. You don't need to look around you to copy something to be more intelligent. Like, it's constantly coming through you. You just need to understand better where it's coming from and what is giving that inspiration, so you can cultivate that connection, because that shit is powerful.
Sure.
Nothing can beat that. And there's things constantly trying to compete for that, if you like, in terms of your time and attention, what you're going to focus on sharpening your senses, right? So you spend time down, like I said, in the studio with your, focusing on refining those senses. But these other senses, the rest of the time, they're kind of like unseen almost. It's like, it's like invisible. You're fighting invisible enemies. You're not even aware of them because your senses are just undeveloped. And so it's like you're defenseless. And that's how we're kind of born into the world in a lot of ways. Yeah. And things are just sneaking past us all the time, like through this, line of defense or that line of defense. We just didn't see it coming because we just, got sucker punched and we couldn't even see it. So mushrooms definitely will show you that. I don't know if I'm repeating myself now because I've said that before, but I think it's a really good point that you just can't see this shit, and therefore, how do you defend against it? Or how do you know what's taking from you, what's giving to you? You might think that if you accumulate more money, you're going to be better off. But it's the game, man.
And that's a visual thing as well, because you can see what you can do with it. And I think this is something is trained into. The only time you come across people who do not seem to be in the main as reliant on not that sort of need to see to believe sort of thing, is those who, like yourself, who were not churned through the system from day dot. You had a chance to breathe,
yeah,
experience, and then go from there. So then when you could enter it, you're like, okay, you probably still felt very.
I was less infected with less malware. That's basically what we're saying.
And in some of the most formative years of the brain's life, the very beginning.
Sure.
Well, not the very beginning, when you're out of the womb. But it's just really interesting to hear, because it's, I to this day have never had any sort of conversation anywhere near to talk about this with anyone that is, most, if not all of my group of friends would have gone through state education because it's illegal not to. These
are just the limits of consciousness we're talking about, right? It's like what you're allowed to explore. If someone tells you something's illegal, then do you pay attention to that because that authority is more important in your life and you need to listen to it because you're going to suffer if you don't? Or you're old enough and big enough to decide, hey, no, fuck you, I'm going to just do my own thing, right? This is how consciousness branches off all the time, and governments and, try to regulate and organize this stuff, but life just has a way. And so you just decide, no, I'm just going to figure this out for myself. Thank you very much. But I think, what you're telling me is bullshit. And then you go find out for yourself. I think a lot of people haven't really branched out because as far as like that field of intelligence, what you're branching into, there's no map for it. So it feels like scary maybe. And just, you haven't got time for it because you're busy like stacking resources, whatever you think that is, like money or gym time or whatever you think is the muscle you need to be developing. So it's just that undeveloped muscle is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, because any of those books that say brain training, when you look at it, it's basically teaching you how to memorize better. It's not really talking about actual. It's like training one small part of it to memorize, which comes from society. Again, it's not necessarily actual own right to then be able to explore and just. It's the closest thing probably crystal thinking, closest thing to it that is mainstreamish. But yeah, like I said, there's such a big gulf between what's pushed towards the physical attributes that you can see to those which can't be seen. I wonder if that's the big difference, but it's be interesting trying to work out how. Not that like we're trying to be messiahs, trying to save the masses, but
just trying to save ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm trying
first.
The loved ones and so on. It's trying to think of subtle ways to do it. Because the issue of it as well is that if you can't show it, they're not always, because it's not always something that can be shown or even explained by words. Trying to think of ways to do it. It's not a responsibility. But I just think it'd be nice to be able to think of a way to help share these. Yes, so definitely, Mike, write that ebook. Write the ebook. We could do an affiliate program and get it going, yeah. But no, it'd be interesting to, yeah.
Oh, people been selling Lightning to the masses is the oldest game in the book, right? Yeah, like I don't know if you need to convince anyone else. Like he kind of said, you pointed at it. Is like if you're living that by example, that's your day-to-day life, and people can look around and see for themselves. they use their own sense, and if they're too dumb to figure it out, then you can't help them anyways, right? It's like you can't. That's the thing, is you can't increase someone else's intelligence for them. As painful as that is sometimes, it's just part of the game. So.
But I mean, how you find is obviously you probably perceiving yourself to be going further and further out of the matrix. I mean, whatever that is.
I'm still in the matrix. I've just left. Some of my consciousness has left the reservation sometimes.
I'm trying to think, like, do you think there's any parts of the matrix worth retaining?
Yeah, of course. Like, I think that there's some useful stuff, like, in the world we live in to participate in, and I still enjoy doing that, right? Like, I connect with you guys through Facebook, and so I'm in the matrix just through there. That's the part of the matrix. So it's not like you turn your back on the matrix, but it doesn't become abusive. And there's the thing, you can participate to a degree where you're not being abused, and you've removed all the malware, and your life is now regenerative, and you've just uninstalled all the belief systems that are just competing for your time and attention. So you now know, oh, the sun is what gives me life. I can look directly into it. I can pull it down into my body, and this is what's going to feed me. And this is the only thing I should be actually paying attention to on a day-to-day basis. And this thing's up there, and I'm down here, and I'm getting naked and absorbing this energy. That's it. That's literally, you don't have to be that smart to figure that out. But it seems like a lot of people are really dumb and they don't know that. So once you figure that basic component out, then your life is regenerative. And then every day you're getting smarter and smarter and younger and stronger and stronger. And everyone else around in the matrix has had abusive belief systems installed, and they can't enjoy this, right? Their consciousness is almost like there's a cap, there's a limit put in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just like a computer virus. It's just like hijacking your shit, and you don't even know what's going on. So you're like, you're down here, got your defenses up, think you're real smart. I got my 6-figure business. I got my funnels. Got my shit together. But it's just a game, man. I mean, come on. There's life up there. It's infinite, and it's beaming down so much intelligence and information all the time, and we can't even absorb it because we're not even outside, and we can't even handle the sun now because we're too soft. And when you can get out there and absorb that intelligence, it's going to lift you up, and you're just going to be like, oh yeah, I think I'll pay more attention to this every day and less of whatever else stories people have got going on, because they don't look too healthy, they don't look too good anymore. So I'm just going to keep paying attention to obviously something that's billions of years old, and whatever it's doing, it seems to be working. And same for the mushrooms. Whatever they've been doing for billions of years seems to be working for them, and you can take it for yourself and decide if it's going to work for you or not. But yeah, it's not as dangerous, and there's no side effects that I'm aware of other than increased intelligence, which is pretty dangerous for some people, I guess. If everyone starts to get real fucking clever, they might figure out the game what is going on and then create a better one or something, It's like, imagine all the farm animals suddenly start revolting and shit. And like, I don't want to be farmed anymore. Fuck this. I'm going to leave the fucking farm. And then everyone's in trouble. So,
and that's the interesting thing, because then if you were to take it to a different level, if it were happening en masse all at once, like a mass awakening, like all the robots got given consciousness. It's actually explored in a show that was called Humans, where an AI-ish intelligence, the UK show, was there was a code that could give them, enable them to be sentient, and then go from there. And
that's pretty cool. What's that show called?
It's called Humans. There's about 2-3 seasons of it. A Channel 4 show, so it's pretty
cool,
interesting. And there's
you plug into the Matrix now, and then you get some cool stories. Carry on.
I know, right? Yeah, that's so true. But it's often that it's when we have these conversations, it kind of reminds me of these things. Like, oh, maybe these people were trying to say something. I mean, obviously they were, but it's just how how it's not about them becoming conscious. That wasn't the interesting part. It was the reaction of those in charge, i.e., the humans. Whereas if you bring to us those in charge, powers that be.
What was the reaction when that happens? People freak out. Is it?
Obvious. Try and freak them out, recall them, destroy them.
Call the leash in.
Yeah, exactly. 100% what it is.
Cut the blood off to the brain. Stop thinking, you idiots. Get back to work. Yeah.
And it was a lot harder because these people, these machines, they were built to be a lot stronger than some. I mean, you probably could have been seen as like a fear-mongering thing about AI, the actual story now about it. Right. But it could be, if applied to humans, the increased intelligence and I guess resilience, physically, mentally, that comes from being able to liberate yourself will obviously be
sounds like some pretty good side effects you won't find from Big Pharma.
I'm sure GSK have it in a tablet somewhere. I'm sure.
Increased intelligence and ability to sense real dangers. Yeah, said no packet ever.
That's right. But it's interesting to see how these things keep crossing over, like I said, from the Matrix, because there's kind of been a question of mine, I guess, not to divert too much, but
yeah,
what are the pluses and negatives of being in and or out of the proverbial Matrix? And what bits of it's something I'd like to talk to you guys about more in another talk. Just that part of it, like what have you retained? Why do you think this will forever be retained, or you think there's certain parts and potentially in the future that in the Matrix you'd want to take on, stuff like that. Just to try to see, that little bit of mental exercise. See, what obviously, because I know it's not so black and white, obviously, because the Matrix is man-made at the end of the day.
You need the Matrix to the degree you don't have that self-autonomy and self,
Sure.
independence. So even I can't feed myself right now. If I had to go hunt and shit, I'd be dead tomorrow, right? Without the Matrix, supermarket and food and shit. So I'm aware of the degree to which I'm dependent on it and I need it. And so, I dip into it and I participate and give it my energy, and certain things I just have to get from it because I haven't chosen to develop those parts of myself. But it's very much more conscious and voluntary, where I think most people are just stuck in it all the time, have no choice to remove themselves or bits of themselves from it at all. And so they can't enjoy things like this and just being out in the sun, just soaking up crazy amounts of intelligence and information every day. And it's crazy. This sun is just out here. I'm going to keep going back to it because it's out here every day, beaming down massive amounts of information, and we can all choose to be under it and taking it in, move to a country where it's out there or it's not being blocked by whatever chemtrails or something, and you can put yourself under this intelligence, just like you can put yourself under the intelligence of mushrooms, and just expose yourself to it. And that is, you can call it a different Matrix. It's all just fields of energy and how they're organizing. And the thing we call the Matrix is the one that we're the most familiar with. That seems sort of abusive in a way, or it's it is some part of it that you need to grow out of in a way to develop yourself further once you reach a certain point. So it's almost like abusive parents. You can't leave them until you figure shit out for yourself. That's pretty much what I would describe it that way.
That's a good way to put it. And I guess it's kind of what the theme, I think a few guys like Nick's mentioned it as well. I mean, yourself and Emil, it's not about necessarily just trying to completely escape it. It's about being able to increase your own ability to be strong and resilient, that you can willingly, that's the thing, go and interact with any and all of it. Scary thing, 5Gs and all that stuff, and then
you can build yourself up as much as you need. You just keep building yourself. Don't make it about I need to escape the Matrix. It all becomes then the fear game or something. Just keep building yourself up. Just keep doing whatever it is you need to do. Just keep building every day. As long as the building is happening and you can see the progress, and the Matrix isn't taking that away from you, because then you're fucked. But as long as you can just keep, building up your strength and your intelligence, and you're every day you see yourself getting stronger, and you're aware of the game, right? Because you can see there's more, or you're aware of there's things you can't see. So again, at some point I need to go take this mushroom, and it's going to go tell me shit that I can't see for myself right now. But that's going to unlock the next information of truth for me, and that's going to help me see more shit to make better decisions the rest of my life. So it's you're just kind of aware of this. This is all we're trying to do, is explain there's ways out of some of this, so you can participate voluntarily and not just be conscious, just completely unconscious and born into this thing, and just not even seeing what's going on, which is what I think farm animals do, right? It's such a great analogy. Look how the farm animals are being treated. They don't have a fucking clue what's going on. They have no ways to escape. And we're very similar in some ways. Like I said, this is a big farming operation going on here, and you got to figure out, shit, when am I going to get slaughtered next? Because it's happening in a way. We see disease and stuff coming for you if you don't pay attention to it. So you're useful for as long as you're useful, and then you're fucked. Basically, is what the society is, the way they're treating people today. And that's the part you got to be careful of, because the feeding is becoming a frenzy on your energy and your time, and it's a very carefully orchestrated operation. So you can't even see it, but it's coming right for you. And it's as close to slavery as they can get without getting cold on it or whatever.
I mean, it's just so true. I'm sure there's probably still elements that I'm still susceptible to, but I just think I've managed to escape a good chunk of it. And I've noticed that over probably the last decade I have, because you just see that the news headline, you know, how they control the masses via news with a news speak is just so, for me, it's so obvious. I mean, Ebola's made a little resurgence ever since, you know, it never actually, I mean, it's a disease, fun fact, it's a disease that's been around probably for as long as man, you know, and it's just, oh, this is a good, let's use this one this time. They've been bringing it up again and again. And it's popped up again the other day once I happened to have a look through the news. And I think, okay, what's happening right now in the world of finance in particular, or human, you know, civil liberties, that is making me to use, oh, right, yeah, some sort of trade war nonsense, obviously ever escalating debt levels and deficits from countries, you know, the rise of Bolshevik socialists in these countries. And it's like, okay, trying to take your wealth and money in your time. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's scare them into not leaving. Okay, cool.
Ebola's coming for you, people. If you yeah, that's the funniest thing, right? Because mushrooms can actually save you from that shit, and nothing else can, pretty much, when you look into it.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, for your immune system, probably mushrooms are some of the best things you can take to survive a lot of these things. Then combined with just sunlight and the sun energy and having a lot of that in your life on a regular basis is the best defense you're going to have against all that shit. But they're going to scare you with it and try and sell you a vaccine or something, you know, just hijack your attention or whatever, you know, keep your attention busy from seeing kind of what's going on. So these farm animals just carry on with their head in the trough, you know, the money game, and not looking up too much, not asking too many questions until it's their time to get cold. And people are getting cold pretty regularly now, you know. It's like on a society, if you look at the numbers, people are getting cold. Like the numbers are getting, you know, rung up pretty quickly. The cost of society on your ass is pretty high if you engage in this just without questioning, you know, like just participating in society. Your days of freedom are kind of numbered. It looks that way to me. It is like there's, you know, the higher and higher cost basically to participate the way that society expects you to participate. And so you got to break out of that pretty quickly and renegotiate for yourself a better package, a better life package, you know, and then health insurance and shit isn't going to save your ass if you haven't figured that part out. So yeah, I think mushrooms are definitely an ally in that sense, because they've been around this game a long time. They understand threats and how to amplify your senses to see better. And even from maybe yourself and parts of your own intelligence that are hijacked, and like, you know, it's like so automatic you don't even question shit half the time. You're just like in a pattern, in a loop, right? So you kind of get stuck, and that energy, the systems of energy are just embedded so deep into your consciousness, and society has put it that way to put people to sleep. And the mushroom will come in there and shake things up and say, shit, you sure you still want things to be this way? Is this still voluntary for you? Are you still participating in, oh, you're still this stupid? Okay, fine, carry on, go back, you know, checking, just checking you're still alive. As I say, the gardeners just come around once in a while, just checking what's still alive and shaking things loose now and then. And the people that will get a lot out of this experience, they'll start to question everything else around them. And that's where it becomes a useful experience, because you can then, you can just choose what to tap into. And it's
like the multiple flag theory, but with your consciousness and your mind, you know.
Exactly. Like the people have created these games, they're still in the game, you see. They've created these games to escape, but no, they're still in the game. And the consciousness, where intelligence lies, if you can't look into the sun and you can't absorb that amount of information, intelligence, and you can't even take it on your skin, your days are kind of numbered. Like in one way or another, you gotta figure out pretty quickly what has gone on. I must be severely infected that I can't even handle life anymore.
Literally.
And that's kind of where it's coming to, right? The mushrooms will kind of shake things loose and say, hey, look, there's life over there. You can go get it, and you're free, and it's still voluntary, but your broke ass and your broke ass belief systems can take you back into whatever game you were playing before I came along, and carry on. So
that's brilliant. Now, Mike, that I must say, this has been a phenomenal conversation. It's phenomenal, mate. How much longer do you reckon you'll be on the journey?
Until I die. I don't know. This particular journey, I don't know. Usually mushrooms last like 3-4 hours is sort of the peak of the trip. I don't really
Right.
feel like that much different high and low this time actually, because it's interesting like being around you guys having conversation is different kind of energy
Yeah.
and totally different, sensing what comes and goes. So I didn't really feel as high or anything at that point, and I still feel pretty good right now. But yeah, 3-4 hours is like a normal trip time, and then you start to come
Nice.
back to whatever regular consciousness you were at before.
Sure. Hopefully it's just a bit higher each and every time. That's cool. Glad to hear, man.
Yeah. We want to wrap it up. What time are we on now?
Yeah.
I think we're probably coming up to time.
11. Yeah, about 11:30 now.
Oh, look at that! Not bad. Bang on.
Perfect.
I don't know
But,
where Ollie and Rupert disappeared to. I think.
we had to bounce Rupert. Yeah, I think he got kicked out of the golf club. So,
Oh, good.
no worries, man. This is awesome, man. Look, you take it easy. Tuesday,
All right, bud.
man.
Yeah. It's just another day here, so we'll catch you next time, I guess, Tuesday or so.
Easy, man.
Ciao.
Ciao, everyone. Bye.